Hey, thanks for coming. I know many of you are looking at this video because you have some health issues. If you will bear with me just for a minute, I will give you some detailed information about how to get rid of some of these problems. The title of this video is How to Be Forever Healthy and Young. Because that's the goal that people want. And I'm one of them. And if you go look at my past videos, you'll see that I have an interest in being healthy and young. So that being the case, why am I overweight still? Well, and this has to do with karma. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because your health issues are related to karma. And not only that, but the group I'm interested in being with also is extremely interested in being healthy to be able to do spiritual investigations. In Vashista's yoga, there is a couple of mentions in that book about the ever-living crow, Vasunda. It has his story, has his birth, and he actually has lived, and is still living, through 17 world cycles. In other words, the universe expands, it stays for a while, and then it collapses. He lived through not only the expansion, but the collapse and the period in between. So whether it's true or not, this shows you the intense interest that the yogis have in being healthy and living a long time. And Vasunda, if you read more about him, he, by learning how to control the prana through the breath, is able to reach a state where his body maintained. And when you ask, and Vashista, who's the protagonist of Vashista's yoga, even though the story is about Rama and his enlightenment, that's another little thing, if you're interested, I can point you to. Asked Vasunda, he was able to live so long. He says, well, God ordained it. But what he said was, I don't have vain imagination about what I don't have inappropriate desires, essentially, is what he said. Because essentially he believed in moderation in all things, including the prana, that he lived so long. Well, that's not really something that's within most of the people that are watching this. Okay, but I just wanted to that there has been at least a 10,000 year interest in a group of people extending their life. It has to do with karma. Okay, I am overweight because of some karmic things. I'm now being freed of that karma, and my weight is going down. And the thing that primarily helps me, okay, so if you're a person that's overweight, you've tried to go on a diet, you know exactly what happens. No matter what the diet you're on, if the diet is not a balanced diet, quote unquote, you get hungry. Now, you may not know what you get hungry for, but you get hungry. And when you eat food, you don't always feel satisfied after you're finished. You're like a little munchy there or something like that. Okay, well, finally, I came across a thing that got rid of the munchies, the hungries, and that was alkaline water. And I made a previous video talking about diabetes and neuropathy because I had that even though I thought I was eating fairly well. Turns out I wasn't. And now, Joel Fuhrman wrote a couple of books. One was The End of Diabetes, and he talks about how you need to get nutrient-dense food, not calorie-dense, nutrient-dense, so high in vitamins and minerals. Mostly vegetarian. But I was vegetarian, but one of the things that I really have to thank Mr. Furman for is that he educated me about oil. And even though I was a vegetarian, I was eating salads with a lot of oil in them. And it's the fat in the vegetables. Okay. But I still had the munchies with that diet. And I still recommend it. I still looking through some of the recipes. And it turns out that every little thing that goes towards optimum health a little bit. And I'll be talking about some vitamins and stuff in just a minute. Anyway, Mr. Fuhrman talks about nutrient-dense diet. It does work. He talked about exercise. I started doing, it's taken me a while to make it into a habit, but I go for a walk pretty much every day. Half hour. Okay. The ability to reduce the calorie intake depends on something I mentioned. Alkaline water. And I think that cancers, diabetes, and all these arthritis, bursitis, restless leg syndrome are due to the imbalance of water. And if you look at civilized countries, they all have a system that makes the water at 0 pH, neither alkaline or acid. And the water is the culprit for an imbalance in your body that then promotes cancer and diabetes and neuropathy, along with some other things. I'll go into that. I'll get back to that just in a minute. Now, we have a fairly advanced civilization. Why don't we know this for a fact? In other words, haven't scientists been studying it and stuff like that? In a way, we'll get to why they are doing some research. But here's the reason why it's being overlooked. And I go back to, some of you may remember this, back in the 70s and 80s, 1970s, 1980s, there was a lot of talk about ulcers and how people had to try different things and do stuff like that. I'll ask you this simple question. How much talk have you heard about ulcers lately? Well, there isn't a lot of talk. There are special cases where people get ulcers and they talk about it then. The medical establishment had missed the fact that ulcers were caused by bacterial infection. And it wasn't until somebody came up with the idea that ulcers came from a bacterial infection that they knew what to do about it. So what they did is they gave people high doses of antibiotics, and the ulcers went away. And so did all the talk about ulcers. See, that's why you don't hear it. So people don't look in the right direction and miss something. Making the water neutral is just like missing the bacterial infection that caused our ulcers. All of our degenerative diseases stem from that. And I'm going to put a link up to alkaline acid. 1934, a Japanese scientist got the Nobel Prize for figuring out that cancers have an acid environment. I knew this for quite some time, and I invested in alkaline water, and I looked at the Kangen machines and all the other stuff. And actually, it turns out the Kangen machine, or even other machines, are now classified in Japan by their Food and Drug their equivalent of the Food and Drug Administration, as a medical device, and you can get a prescription for it. Well, the Kangen machines were pretty expensive for me, so I didn't buy it. But I met a guy that he was in his 70s when he started with the Kangen machine, and he was taking insulin shots. In 2 years, his need for insulin was gone, and he didn't even change his diet, if that's possible. And I think so let me tell you, this is Michael's theory, quote unquote. There's no proof of it yet. That the alkaline water, why it promotes health, is because we used to live in primordial forests, and we drank the water that was available. Well, if you go out and test the pH out in the forest, the water there is slightly alkaline. So when you have water that's at neutral pH, your body is always fighting to get to an alkaline state. And I'm going to give a link in the description of this article by this guy that wrote, okay, I bookmarked it, I'm going to add it to the thing, is that the cancers, when they start, in order to promote their growth, they make their immediate environment more acid by killing off healthy cells. So I've been watching some of the videos about alkaline water and stuff like that, where people say that your cancer is cured, but some of it, that sometimes it doesn't work. Because now, once the cancer gets going, it resists, even if you make your body zero alkalinity rather than acid, it still makes the local area acid. So this guy talks about other ways to make the body more alkaline, and alkalinity is hard on your body if it's too negative as well. But see, now I think what I think cancer is, in order to deal with cancers, you have to make the body more alkaline than it's supposed to be in order to knock down the cancer. So people with a little bit of knowledge don't make their body very alkaline. Okay, and so I think that eventually, when they figure this out, they'll have some sort of regimen that goes into slightly more negative than you need, and then the cancer dies, and then you go back to the slightly negative, slightly alkaline diet of some kind. I'll put the link in for my own video. This helped me get rid of the neuropathy. I met a guy that had neuropathy, but his blood sugar was normal because he was taking metformin. And he did not respond to vitamins and stuff like that. So let me get to the other point. I'm sorry this is taking so long, but it's a complicated issue. So when I started the alkaline water, several things happened. I'll see if I can remember them. My restless leg syndrome is gone. Okay. I've lost 15 pounds in about 3 months. Here's a positive that I didn't expect. I feel satisfied now when I have a dinner. I've cut out the evening meal by and large because I take my blood sugar every morning. And my blood sugar now still bounces a little bit because I take it every day. But what I'm doing now is I'm doing fasting. I'm fasting today. And I'm now to the period where I'm fasting twice a week. Why is that? It's because this is the other thing that the yogis discovered, is that your body gets filled with toxins. And we have elimination systems, but sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work well enough. Arthritis is due to toxin buildup. Now, you've heard that arthritis is an autoimmune disease. Well, it's autoimmune in that your immune system has recognized that there's something at your joints that's irritating the body, and they try and produce